it is a social media, right? Like the idea is we connect with people, we don't connect with brands. If you ever share content with someone, you need to study why you shared it with them. Usually it's because it related to you on a deep level. And that's what churches need to start doing, is relating to people.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today you're in for a treat because I've got Jonathan Malm here for you guys, and we're going to talk all things social media for the church. Jonathan is a writer, an entrepreneur, and he has done so many things that you probably didn't even realize. Like, I didn't realize that you were the founder of churchstagedesigns.com.
Yeah, church stage design ideas. That I turned it over to someone else in December of this, or I guess last year, but yeah, I ran that for 13 years or something.
Wow. Yeah, man, that is, we've used so many ideas from that, just getting inspiration from other churches. And that's kind of what this talk will be for, is like, just you guys, we're all in different church cultures, but like we're all trying to do the same thing. And so Jonathan also is the founder of sundaysocial.tv, which our church has used since like the kickoff, but so much good stuff on there for the church. And so, and also one of my favorite things is just Jonathan's Instagram. Like he's killing it on his personal Instagram. So you guys will have to check that out. But I thought I'd just want to kick things off with the whole idea of start with why and what does success look like on social media? Because I think that's one thing, you know, I'm a worship and media arts pastor. Social media falls underneath my umbrella. And it's sometimes hard for me to define, like, what is success for our church? And for context, like our church runs around 450. We've got a couple thousand YouTube followers, just a few hundred in the other social areas. So it's like, in the era of discovery algorithms, what does success look like? What should we be striving for? What's the target?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a great point, the discovery algorithms, right? Like if we're talking about, if you're wanting to tap into those discovery algorithms, that is success, is reaching people that don't go to our church and don't follow us, and start following us because we're creating content that is adding value to their life. But it's hard for churches because the tendency is just to focus on on what we're doing on Sunday morning, right? Like, hey, come to this event, come to this event, come to this event. The crazy thing about discovery algorithms, we're talking about TikTok, Instagram Reels, where you're getting, maybe only 10% of your audience actually seeing the video, but then 90% of it is other people who have no connection with your church and are not in your city. So if you're posting content, inviting people to your services, and you are in Owasso, Oklahoma, right? Yeah. I was going to say Asowo, but I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Or in San Antonio, Texas, but then the people watching are in Miami, Florida, it's not going to be applicable to them, and they're not going to want to watch it. It's going to actually hurt your discovery. So if you're trying to be discovered by people, then you need to create content that's kind of location agnostic or location unspecific. So creating content that, hey, this is pastor's sermon, we're going to put it into really digestible format, or this is, some encouragement for this week. We'll put it over some B-roll of our services, but it's not really about the service so much. It's more about the encouragement we can provide people. This is the verse that you're working through largely as like the main text for our sermon, and we're gonna, make some really creative ways to show that. So that would be success if that's your goal. But for a lot of churches, that's not, we're not content creators. Like, we're not like influencers, right? Like, my church does a phenomenal job, but it's pretty much focused around the Sunday service. They create amazing content, but the goal is to connect with the people that already are engaged with Grace Avenue Church, that are already following us, and just really creating that, like, hey, we're a reminder that we're here, and that it's a community and that's a family, and then just a reminder to attend, a reminder to be involved. Another goal that people have, that some churches have, is to really connect with their community. So they're really going to be focusing more on San Antonio specific or Owasso specific material. So they're going to be, they're going to be filming their videos in front of a really popular hangout or in front of a restaurant. The idea is to really engage the community, and that's a really cool option too. But you do have to decide what we're trying to accomplish. Are we trying to get people to attend an event? In which case, yeah, those announcement graphics are great. Are we trying to get people to, remain connected to our church? Are we trying to reach our community, or are we trying to be out in the public, even beyond our city? And that will determine a lot of different things that you want to do, because success will look different for each one of those.
Yeah, those are great points. Nailing down like who our target audience is, I think, is super important, and it's tough. What do you think about the idea of like our digital presence in social media should be a extension and reflection of what's happening on a Sunday morning service, even to the extent of like, I've heard some people say like, your pastor is the figurehead usually that most people are associating with your church on a Sunday morning, or maybe a worship leader, your leadership. But then one of the struggles may be your pastor is not engaged on social media. And I'd love to talk about that more here in a little bit. But should those same personalities be reflected in your online, or is it okay to maybe have a volunteer that's maybe more like your figurehead of your social media stuff?
Yeah, I love having a figurehead, like you said, because it is a social media, right? Like the idea is we connect with people, we don't connect with brands. The scary thing about that is that like if we have a volunteer that's going to go off the rails and they're the face of our organization, that's where a lot of churches are afraid. I don't think that's so concerning. You mentioned me and Joe Cavazos, who has done some design work for you guys. We are the co-founders of Sunday Social. We work together. It's kind of like we're the brand. We brought on a girl maybe 4 years ago. Her name's Brianna. You guys said that wrong. Brianna. And we let her become the face of Sunday Social. That was an intentional decision because we wanted someone to be the face. We were busy doing other work. Even though we were in social media, we didn't necessarily have the time to devote to our personal social media, our brand social media rather. So we let her become the face. And that was a reflection of her being a good reflection of what we were trying to communicate to our audience. And she was in line with our personalities. But yeah, so she started recording, videos of herself. She still does the majority of our reels, her and her sister now. She does all the stories, and she'll be the one responding to it. It's her voice, and we let it be her voice. She'll have her son on a video with her sometimes, her new baby, because we want it to be a very personal experience, and we've seen huge results from that. And so I would encourage, even if she doesn't, she's phenomenal. There's no plans to fire her or something, but even if she were to go off the rails and I don't think that would hurt our brand in any way if we change that face. The idea is, though, that people are going to connect with a face more than a brand. And even if that face changes at times, that's okay. But knowing that there is an actual person going to be commenting, and who that person is that's commenting on your comments or responding to you, or responding to your DMs, there's so much value in that, because I think so many times I'll see a brand, I'm like, this brand is never going to see my comment. So what value is there in comment? Because that's what social media is. I want to be seen, whether through the content that I'm watching or through the comments that I'm leaving and getting responded to. I want to be able to be seen. And by having a face in front of the camera or on the reels, it makes me feel like, okay, someone is going to see this.
That's a great point. People connecting with people, not brands. I've never really thought about it like that, but that makes a lot of sense. My wheels are spinning about even our chat host online on Sunday services. A lot of times that's just our church name, but maybe that should be at least introductions hey, I'm Ashley and I'll be your chat host today, that kind of thing. So
I would
interesting
even almost have it just say, have her name Ashley. I wouldn't use that. I would just put Ashley and then say, hey, I'm going to be your host today, so that that they're in official capacity. But again, connecting with people more than brands.
That's interesting. Okay, I want to talk about pastors and social media. Our pastor has this longing and desire to truly be engaged on social media. He knows how much impact you can have and how that would really help our church connect with him even as we grow, to kind of break down those walls and form bonds. But what would you say to that pastor that maybe just feels stuck with social media? He just can't get his feet off the ground, feels a little intimidated by letting people behind that wall, maybe even putting himself out there. What would you say to encourage a pastor that wants to be involved but is just maybe stuck?
One of the hardest things about social media, getting involved, is finding the rhythm that works for you. Because, my co-writer for my books, Jason Young, he sees what I'm doing on social media and he's like, I need to be on social media, seeing the way I'm able to engage people. And it's just a totally different way, because I use a lot of humor. I make ridiculous videos. I kind of poke fun at church culture, hopefully in a we're all in this together mode, not a cynical, this is what's wrong with the church, right? I love the church. And I hope that comes across. But that's the way I do it. And so I've been trying to help him find a model that works for him. He's not going to lip sync videos. He's not going to be, he's a funny guy, but that's not his that's not how he presents himself, right? So I've been helping him find, like, there's this one counselor named Jim Brillon who's on TikTok, and the way he approaches social media, he's a counselor. He talks about narcissism. That's like his shtick, right? And the way that he formats his videos is so effective, but it's not silly. It's very matter of fact. It's not him trying to put on some sort of like performance. He's not dancing. He's not lip syncing, but it's a very effective way. So trying to find models and formats and templates, if you will, that your pastor can tap into that can be effective still. Because that's the thing. A lot of pastors, if they don't get the vision for it, it's usually because they haven't been effective. They posted a video and it got 50 views. And that those 50 views are like people who kind of scrolled off it after like the first 3 seconds. Like, it wasn't a real view, right? Like, a real view is like someone who liked it, engaged with it. Like, that's when like, okay, they, that one of those 50 people really liked it. So that's part of why. But then the other one is just, I just don't know how to be on social media. Like, I know how to stand up on stage, and when I have 30 minutes to, tell that interesting story from this week and really get into the text, like, I get that, but social media is foreign for them. So that's a lot of it. Is just finding, hey, I saw this person post this week and I thought this might be a way you could try it. Let's try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something different, right? But finding that thing like, this feels good for me, right? I remember, with public speaking, I finally found this book by Andy Stanley, Communicating for Change. And the way that Andy Stanley formats his messages, I tried that one time and I'm like, this is it. I feel good about speaking for the first time because I found the model that works for me. And that's often what we need to get on social media, is finding that model that works.
That's great, man. Let's talk about social media post trends that may be dying in effectiveness. I attended your masterclass on Reels, and you guys talked a little bit about this, and I thought it was some interesting things that I needed to think about with our post strategies for church.
Yeah, the problem is we're all trying to figure out how to hack the algorithm, right? The purpose of the algorithm, it's not our enemy. The purpose of the algorithm is to show me content that I like, right? Like, that's Instagram wants you to spend hours and hours and hours. Facebook, the same thing. TikTok, they want you to waste your entire day on their platform because that means they can serve you ads. That means that you're going to keep using them. They want that. So they're never trying to hide content. What they're trying to do is show good content, show good content that you actually like. So when we find these hacks of the algorithm, it's the reason we're having to use a hack is because we're not creating good content, right? So some of the hacks that we've used in the past are things like stop scrolling. We make a big graphic that says stop scrolling, and then we tell them what they need to know, right? Like, and the problem is that worked for a while, but so many people started using it, and they started abusing it by saying, stop scrolling. Hey, come to church this Sunday. I was already going to come to church. Or I'm in Miami. I'm not going to go to your church, right? And so we ignore it. So these hacks get overused and they stop being effective. So that's one of those hacks, is that stop scrolling approach. Another one is the whole engagement bait, where you're like, hey, are you Mac or PC? Like, if you would have posted that on Facebook 5 years ago, Facebook would have, that would have been your most popular post, right? Like, that would have worked so well because it wasn't overused. It's starting to get overused. And it depends on your audience. I still come across those posts on Instagram that are like, Jesus can beat Satan. Type amen if you agree, right? And like the comments are filled with amens, right? Because like it's less savvy followers that follow those accounts and they're down with it. Like, yeah, I'll type amen. And that gigs that tricks the algorithm to a degree, but it's also content that you want. Like that is also content like, man, if I'm that person, I want to feel like, yeah, Jesus can beat Satan, right? So things like that, I'd say, are the things that are dying more, are the things that are like tricking the algorithm. And if you find a new thing that tricks the algorithm, it's probably only going to last for a few months and it's going to stop being effective again. That's what I would say is the main thing, that the main post types that are dying.
when we talk about effectiveness, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts about student ministry and children's ministry utilizing social media in like really effective ways. Have you seen anybody out there that maybe we could tap into the way that they're doing that, or ideas, tips for our children's and youth ministries?
Yeah, one of the hardest things to do with any project is seeing it clearly from an outside perspective while you're in it. So, as a parent, if I were to follow my church's Instagram account that ministers to kids, right? Like it's their kids' ministry account. What do I want to see? I want maybe thoughts on how to extend what happened on Sunday through the week for my kid. Say, here are some questions you can ask your kid this week. Here are some activities you can do with your kid that will reinforce the lesson that they learned on Sunday. It's so important to think through what I would want to see if I were to follow that account, if I was that target audience, right? So with the kids ministry account, obviously kids aren't on Instagram. If they are, that's a problem, right? Like parents, don't do that. But it's parents that are following this kids ministry account. So what do parents want and need from that account? They might not want to see their kids because like that makes them freaked out that like their kids are on social media, didn't get permission, but they do want to see material that enriches their experience as a parent. So really you're creating content for parents is really what a kids ministry account should be making. And yes, it can reflect the brand, the fun of kids ministry. One of the people that frequently comes up on my feed is Miss Rachel. I don't know. I don't watch Miss Rachel. She's like she's a YouTube account for kids, more for like younger age, for early childhood development. She's like, what's this? This is a highlighter, right? Like that's her thing. Like, and kids love it. I've never shown it to my son. He's a toddler. I think I won't show it to him. But she had her account, her social media account is actually geared toward parents. So she's encouraging parents like, hey, I know you feel exhausted, but you can make it through it. And she's blowing up on social media. Her YouTube account is for kids, but her Instagram account is for parents. And she's very separate with that, right? She kills it. So if you follow her you would see some really great content that you could maybe get inspired by. But then for youth, what do youth want to see? Youth want to see their friends. They want to see themselves. They want to see content that makes them laugh. They want to see entertainment content. So for youth, I would say, help youth create content or let the youth help you create content for your Instagram account or for your TikTok. Let 5 youth that are pretty cool come up with trend ideas like, hey, we should do this trend for our youth group, and then get the kids involved. Like that's what is going to be really effective there. And again, you might not go viral with that because it's probably going to be like kind of crummy content. Like unless you have one of those like thirst trap boys that go to your youth group, that might go viral, right? But like it's going to be stuff that's just for your own people, right? Like it's going to be, your youth are going to show it to their friends because they're in the video, or like, hey, this is my youth group. I think it's so funny, But that's going to be effective for the youth group. It might not reach 1 million people, but that's okay.
Yeah. Those are really good thoughts. I love that. We recently just started having our youth pastor used to do hilarious content, but he's moved to having our leadership team of the students do it. And we're just going to see how it goes for a while, And they were insistent. We don't want you to monitor what we're posting, like, and filter what we're posting. Like, just let us do it for a couple months and see how it goes. So we'll see.
Yeah. I was talking to someone about, we were talking about did you see on TikTok, the Grimace shake?
Yeah.
If you haven't followed this, so there was this like trend, it was like happy birthday Grimace. So McDonald's made this blue shake, and we were trying to figure out if McDonald's came up with this idea or if it was just a grassroots viral thing that happened. But people were making these videos. If you didn't see them, they're hilarious and a little bit disturbing. But someone's like, hey, happy birthday Grimace. I wanted to try the shake. I heard a lot of good things about it. So they try it. And then it cuts away and like they become possessed by Grimace, or, they like die in a violent way and like the Grimace blue milkshake isn't coming out of their mouth. Like it's really disturbing videos, but it's hilarious if that's your humor, right? And we're like, me and my friend were debating like, did McDonald's come up with that? And I'm like, I don't think McDonald's would have come up with that because it was too edgy. It didn't seem like a committee would not let that go through, right? And so sometimes we can like over committeize social media where it doesn't reflect our brand very well, but it's not going to do well. And sometimes the stuff that does the best is stuff that's maybe a little bit out of our control and maybe we wouldn't necessarily approve so much. Like obviously, you don't want your kids like cussing on, maybe don't use those vulgar songs and stuff like that. But things that maybe are a little edgy, I'd say in a youth group setting, let them try it.
Awesome. This one's a little deeper question, and I'd love to get your thoughts on just church online in general. Can genuine gatherings happen in the virtual world? I know churches like Life Churches have even begun to try leaning into like VR church, and I've heard stories of salvations happening in, the VR land, and yet then we have leaders of like our denomination, like J.D. Greer, almost scolding people for not coming back to church whenever they're healthy enough, just almost calling them lazy Christians. But I think there's this battle of like, we believe in church online, but we kind of don't believe in church online.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts?
I don't know that I have the answer for this, because there's two perspectives on it. There's the idea that, and I battled this frankly with Sunday Social, is can discipleship happen online? No. Yeah, and yes. Discipleship is me submitting myself to someone else's leadership, being transparent, letting them speak into my life, and giving that open door to someone, right? Because like, if all I'm showing you is my filtered Instagram persona and I'm, writing, what a beautiful day, discipleship is not happening, because there's no authenticity, there's no real community happening. If, however, though, I am being my true self, maybe not on my Instagram, I'm not posting, my tears because I just had a rough day, right? Like, but I'm direct messaging people. I'm letting people speak into my life. Hey, I noticed you posted something. Are you doing okay? And then I talk to them and actually engage in that. So discipleship can happen online, but it requires me to submit to authority. Hey, same thing happens at your church in a mega church environment, or even in 450, 500 people. There are people who will come in and come out and leave. They will never connect with someone. They will never get transparent with someone. So does discipleship happen in a church service? Not really. Like, it happens in the small groups, right? So there is something to be said about church online being effective, right? Like, it can be effective if the people choose for it to be effective for them. At the same time, are we saying that, like, you checked off the box by going on church online and like, hey, you did everything that was required of you, right? Like, there should be a call to something deeper, not necessarily to, hey, come to our service, although I do believe there's value in that, right? Like, but there should be instead the call to, hey, connect with someone, those people that you were chatting with during church online this week, connect with them, grab coffee with them. I know you might not feel comfortable going to a large church environment, but get involved with someone, get involved in discipleship, be transparent with someone. That should be the true call, because there's been this idea that we like check off the box, like, people want to please, right? Like, they want to know, like, am I doing enough in my spiritual formation? And unintentionally for a while, we've communicated that if you come to church every Sunday, you're good, you're in, you're a Christian, you fulfilled your religious duty, and it's not true. And then we said, okay, well, if you volunteer, then you're getting community, because, that's the best way to get community. And that's not necessarily true. It is true sometimes, but it's not necessarily the truth. You go to a small group, you're good, you checked it off. Well, not necessarily, right? Like, the real thing is, it's a call to something that we can't measure. It's a call to, are you being transparent with people? And that's what we have to set for people. That's the problem with spiritual formation in general, is it's not easily trackable. And if we're trying to track it, if we're trying to systematize it, we're maybe setting a wrong goal for people. Same thing with church online. If we're saying, you need to come on Sunday, it doesn't mean that you're getting any more connected than on church online.
That's a good point. And I think even for pastors like myself, pride can play a little part of that back of the mind feeling of like wanting people to come back and be in the room because we love a full room, It's fun.
So, I that was one thing that I missed, is just like hearing people sing around me,
absolutely.
Someone walking in, I can high five them while we're singing. It's a dynamic that extroverts like me, or people who love that group mentality, like. It's not the only way necessarily, though.
Yeah. Well, let's do some rapid fire, like underrated, overrated, and I want to get just a quick thought on these just a few areas. So,
okay.
First one, Facebook ads, pay to play in social media. Overrated or underrated?
Underrated. I use them and I love them.
What's the most effective way churches can utilize ads?
Yeah. So what we do is we create content that warms up the audience. So it's just free content. We're not asking to do anything. We're just giving value. So, hey, here are 3 things that you can do better on social media, or create a video that's just like, I did this with my book that just came out, Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright. I created a video that just said, it was me sipping coffee, and the text above said, Jesus, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And then church staff, burning out, right? Like the fact that church staff burn out, even though Jesus said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. So it presented this idea. It was a little bit funny, a little bit like, ooh, there's something wrong here, right? Like it created some tension. It did really well. And then, so yes, that kind of went viral on its own, but then I also boosted it out. And then the cool thing is with Facebook ads is you can retarget people. So people who watched that video, that's people that kind of engaged, that you got a little bit of trust. You created some trust equity there. You can retarget them. And then if I want to sell them that book, I can say, hey, by the way, this book is available. You can do the same thing for your church. So, you're hosting a worship night. You're probably going to get people who are like super into worship. So you might share like, hey, 10 amazing worship songs that we're loving this week, And that's great content. You post that first video. The people who engage with that, then you retarget them with say, hey, by the way, we have a worship night we want to invite you to. Getting people to watch that initial video, if it's really good content, it's super cheap. It's like 1 cent per video watch. So that's super inexpensive. And then to get people to actually, whenever you warm up that group, whenever you create a group of people that have already engaged, it makes then the next ad where you're actually asking something from them a lot cheaper. Sorry, that was like
I love
Facebook
that.
ads 101, right? Like, but that's how we do it.
I love that because a lot of times we'll just like make like a cool recap video and then we'll use that for next year's event. But yours is actually giving something to people of value more than just an advertisement for them to click
It's
on.
kind of like the drug dealer model where you like give them a little taste and then you ask them to buy. But like, it's just call it a free sample, if you will. Costco samples is what it's all about. You get the sample and you're like, oh, that's actually really good. I'm going to buy that, right? Like, but if they hadn't have given you the sample, you might have never thought to purchase it in the first place.
Yeah. All right. Overrated, underrated threads.
I don't know that's overrated anymore because everyone's just kind of like lost track. My friend Nick Goodner, he's like fully investing all of his energy there, but I'm like, it's kind of overrated right now. Not to say that it won't ever be useful, but right now I feel like it's overrated.
Okay. What about Twitter for churches?
Overrated.
Yeah.
I think you can use it effectively. I think you can use Twitter effectively, just caveat. If you are creating, because like Twitter and Threads is a thought platform.
Yes.
So again, churches are like, if you're just inviting people to your service, not going to work. But if you're posting really provocative thoughts, that can be an effective use.
Yeah. Somebody I've seen do that really well is somebody like Shane Pruitt, who is a communicator that he's not afraid to speak his mind, but that, people want to hear a perspective, and so he has a big following on that. But what about podcasts for churches? And more than just like posting your sermon online, I've seen some churches try to dive into like specified podcasting ideas. What do you think?
I think it's underrated. I think my pastor sees a vision for this, so he uses it as a chance to develop the leaders within the church. Again, he's not expecting it to reach thousands of people. He's expecting it to reach the people that are really engaged at church and help develop them into. So it's just a way to develop your people. So yeah, I'm underrated, I would say.
Okay, trending audio on Instagram and TikTok.
Underrated because churches don't learn the trends. I talk about this a lot, but the idea that whenever you make a video, you need to make a promise in the first 1 or 2 seconds that shows people that this video is worth watching. The cool thing about trending audio is if you've seen the previous trends and you hear the audio, it's an implied promise that, ooh, they're going to have a unique take on this. This is going to be funny, or this is going to be something. So trending audio meaning like, oh, that beautiful sound that you're putting over your service recap, whatever, it doesn't matter. But trending audio for an actual trend, that creates a promise that it can actually be really helpful for you.
The other perspective I've heard is like the danger of using trendy audio when it disappears or someone takes it down. But I feel like if you're doing a trend, like people are going to see it while it's trending, not like a year later, probably.
Yeah, I mean, every now and then an old video of mine will be boosted up and stuff, but if you're making enough content, which you should be, probably making like a reel, every day, or maybe a reel every 2 or 3 days, it doesn't matter. Like that's gonna go away.
Last one, church websites, overrated, underrated.
Um, Sheesh, I don't know. I would probably say overrated a little bit, just because I think we probably don't need to update as much as we think we do. It's just our business page, like, hey, this is our service times, this is who we are. It's just kind of like our brochure, really, to like let people know about our church. It's not probably going to connect with our current people that much. It's going to be an onboard for new people.
Who is somebody on social that we should be following that maybe isn't like a mega church, that maybe is like a nonprofit or someone from the business world that you've seen do social really well, that they're connecting, building those relationships somehow, building their brand even? Does anybody come to mind that, I feel like we copycat so much in the church world that maybe we need to like look outside of what the big churches are doing?
Honestly, I would follow meme accounts and momfluencers, and probably those two, and maybe food influencers. The reason is I love studying why something works. Obviously, I'm a parent of a toddler. I'm very involved in raising my toddler. A lot of the momfluencers that post about like their husbands being a deadbeat, I'm like, I don't really relate to that, like, right? But I relate to like some of the things that they are saying, like, oh my gosh, when you change your diaper and your child's wiggling, right? Like, I totally get that, right? So, but like, I study why I like that content, and I'd say this is true for any content that you see. If you like it, if you're like, ooh, yeah, I got to share this. If you ever share content with someone, you need to study why you shared it with them. Usually it's because it related to you on a deep level. And that's what churches need to start doing, is relating to people. So why did that work? How could I apply that same model or that same template to our church where it relates to people? You'll also notice that they're very niche specific. Like the best influencers are like, I am a momfluencer for 2-year-olds in a California style lifestyle, right? Like it's like very, very specific. And even seeing that specificity can help you realize, okay, I liked it because it was very much talking to me. It wasn't talking to everyone, it was talking to me. So yeah, I mean, you could follow Shawn Johnson. She's obviously an Olympic gold medalist gymnast, but she posts momfluencer stuff. She's great. You can follow Miss Rachel is one as well. There's this person on TikTok. Well, this is just for entertainment, but I like it. It's what's it called? It's called What's Levi Eating, or Feeding Levi. It's like this toddler. He's 3, and his dad's like this professional chef. And so every episode starts with like Levi saying, "Hey Levi, what do you want to eat for dinner?" And he's like, "Braised tenderloin," which he doesn't know what braised tenderloin is. Then his dad prepares it. And then it shows Levi eating it. And it's kind of cool, especially if you have a toddler, seeing this kid eating like this chefy meal and like, ooh, this meat is tender. It's really cool. But again, and Jim Brillon is another one. Follow on TikTok. Just seeing that format. Yeah, those are probably the main ones I would say. Sorry,
that's a great thought to think through, like, who is your target audience for your church trying to reach? Because we can't reach everybody. We got to have somebody that's our target, and we do as a church. And then thinking about like, who do they follow? Who are the influencers that they're sharing their content, and like, how can we maybe glean and be inspired by the way they're doing social media? I like that. That's a really good thought.
Yeah. One of the things they tell you when writing a book is that you write the book to a specific person. So you imagine that person across the table from you, you write the book for them, and it seems counterintuitive because you're like, oh no, if I only write it for one person, it's only going to reach, like 50 people. But the thing that happens whenever we tell stories, whenever we tell very specific things, is people are pretty good at contextualizing. They're pretty good at taking something and saying, oh, this is how it applies to me, or I can relate to that, even though that's not necessarily exactly me. Same thing with social media. You can create content that's very niche specific that will reach people, even if they might not even fit in that niche because they have a friend who does, or they have. So like I would be, I think one of the disservices we do ourselves as churches is we say we're for everyone, which we are for everyone, right? Like everyone can come through our doors, but instead we create content for a very specific niche and realize that more people probably relate to that than we think they do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of writing a book, I want you to just briefly give us your thoughts on your new book, Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright. You've written many books for the church, but like, I think that this is an issue that probably a lot of people watching this video, if you're working in the church world, that you've probably dealt with some of these feelings. So what's the thoughts on Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright?
Yeah, so Jason and me, he's my co-writer. We wanted to write a book that wasn't just a burnout book, because if you're reading a book about burnout, it's probably going to be a long, rough road to get back to a healthy place, right? We wanted to keep people from even getting to that place of burnout. So this is almost an anti-burnout book, where we want to give you 10 ways to get healthy. And everyone is prone to burnout in their own way, right? Like we found like 10 kind of things, 10 sources of burnout that, you know, some people might deal with. Boundaries is where they're most weak, where they're probably going to burn out, or operating from a place of values, or control, or perfectionism. We all have our own like things, right? So we identified those 10 areas, and then we showed you ways to build health in those areas. So yeah, Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright. It's really to help you have, because you get into leadership because you want it to be hard. You want to do a lot, like you want to work hard and like put your all into it. So we're not suggesting you just go to the golf course and, you know, make sure you go to the golf course every Saturday, right? Like that's not going to necessarily help you, but we want to help you be healthy and high capacity in leadership and like last for the long term, which we do see it's possible. Like we've seen people do it. Rick Warren just retired after it was like 40 something years. And he was able to be healthy in the middle of family tragedy, in the middle of the pressures of a megachurch, in the middle of all of this stuff. He went through COVID and navigated the church through COVID. So it is possible, but it requires some very intentional steps.
I'd love to link to that survey that you have available, because I took it to kind of see, is there a certain area that maybe you're prone to burnout in? And I thought it was interesting. So maybe I can link to that in the description. I think you've linked to it on Instagram maybe before.
Yeah, I do it. It's just don'tburnoutburnbright.com/assessment. Just a free anonymous survey, 35 questions, pretty short. But yeah, it kind of goes through, and then it gives you some next steps to go through and kind of some explanation of what you need to work on. So
yeah. All right, Jonathan, these are awesome thoughts. Guys, if you have questions or comments, be sure to drop those in the comments of this video. You can always find Jonathan on all the socials. Is it pretty much Jonathan Malm? I mean, what's the handle?
Yeah, Instagram is probably what I use the most just because I love it. So follow me on Instagram, direct message me. I check even my like hidden things because sometimes people will get dropped into that spam thing, and I'm like, I want to engage with people. So I love responding to questions, comments, all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you for spending some time talking social media stuff. I'm sure it was helpful to everybody watching this. So if it was, hit the like button. Remember, guys, we can do a lot of great things. Let's do it all for God's glory. We'll see you in the next one.